Hey guys, it's Amelia Singer here on Ameliorate Through Wine, where I pair wine to international guests based on their palate, personality, and personal story. I am thrilled to announce that this podcast is being vigorously propelled by Rothschild Wine Collection from Goodhouse Waddesdon. Now, this really is a name synonymous with a century-old legacy of art and wine craftsmanship. I really couldn't think of a better pairing for this wine and culture podcast. From the early 1920s to the present day, the Rothschilds' profound love for both wine and art has been at the center of their journey. The family's artistic heritage distinguishes the label, often giving a unique story which adds an extra dimension to the exceptional wine. With handcrafted bottles created by inspirational artists, mesmerizing wine cellars, and even the family members themselves designing the labels on the wine bottle. The Rothschilds' timeless commitment to the fusion of wine and art is a legacy to inspire wine enthusiasts and wine connoisseurs alike. For more information, visit goodhousewaddesdon.com. And now, sit back, pour yourself a glass, and enjoy. Hey guys, I am super excited to have with me today a multi-award-winning broadcaster, journalist, former charity boss, and K-pop Peloton lover, who's also just completed her 100th Substack today.
I know. Well done.
Jo Elvin,
Thank
yes.
you. Sorry, I had to jump in there.
I know.
Because even I couldn't believe that.
No, I was really impressed. Well, I've a couple more lines. I was really excited about the Substack too.
Thanks.
But you are a multi-award-winning editor who's launched and steered some of Britain's most successful magazines, including Sugar and Glamour, which are very close to my heart.
Aww.
But that definitely got me through boarding school. And you're an Australian powerhouse who essentially arrived in the UK from Sydney in 1992 with, I heard, a 2-line CV.
Pretty much.
And £400.
Yes.
And you slowly worked your way up through the ranks to become one of the country's most respected editors. For the last 2 years, you've been CEO of Children Cancer UK, and through wine, we'll be delving deeper into your inspiring and multifaceted career and life story. So all of the wines I've chosen today, all three, are made by strong, creative, innovative, and trailblazing women based on your palate.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Jo.
I'm very excited to be here. There's cheese. There's wine.
What more could you want?
How pissed are we going to get?
Well, this is a safe space.
Okay.
So it's okay.
All right. Until everyone hears it. No, I am terrible. I am a lightweight. I just have to warn you. But,
oh my gosh, I've got the best pills for that.
Okay.
They're called Miracle. I'm not sure if I'm not being sponsored, but everyone should know about these pills. My doctor friend told me about them. It's spelled Miracle, Myrkl.
Oh, I saw an ad for those.
Yeah, they've been in the Sunday Times. They're legit.
Yeah.
And it's just basically plant-based. It's like food-based, high in B12 food supplements. And the high amount of B12 means you don't absorb as much of the alcohol. So you take 2 pills 2 hours before you drink, and then it kind of protects you for 12 hours.
Wow. I mean, that information has been worth the trip alone. This is great.
I've got some extra
Every
next
day's a
door.
school day. Oh, no. Yeah, you could be my dealer. Yeah.
Well, to start us off, now you said to me you don't like oaky white wine. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely understandable. You prefer things which are crisp, refreshing. You love your Sauvignon Blanc, your Semillon. I'm not going to give you that because on this podcast, I like people to try things they wouldn't normally go for, but it will be based on that flavor trajectory.
Okay.
So we're going to go to Spain.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the Godello grape?
No.
Not many people have. Have you heard of Albarino?
No.
So Albarino.
I told you I'm not very wine-educated.
No, this is fantastic because I think you'll like both of these grapes.
Okay.
I've actually got the Godello grape. Thank you so much. I'm actually...
Fill her up, Amelia.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So the Godello grape I really love. It's like from Northwest Spain. What I like about it, Northwest Spain, maritime climate. So it gets kind of cool climate.
This is where I
mountainous.
pretend to be.
So yeah, you get the crispness and refreshing. It's not going to be like from a really hot climate. And I kind of see it as it's got the pear, the peach fruit, due to the maritime breezes. I'm sure you can pick up the slight saline quality there.
Lovely fruity, yeah.
Lovely and fruity. But when you taste it, it's not going to be too fruity and it's going to be really refreshing and crisp acidity, which I hope you will enjoy.
All right. Should we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
I do like that very much.
See, it's got kind of like a little bit of twang at the end, which
Yeah.
kind of cleanses the palate, which I
Beautiful.
thought you'd enjoy.
Because I don't like, you have wine language, wine speak, I don't. But I don't like when something hits your palate like a bomb blast. Do you know what I mean? And this is just lovely and and mild.
It's got fruit, but it's got elegance, and I always like to have one wine from a supermarket and two wines from an indie, just to support different sectors in the industry. And this is part of Majestic's winemaker series, and they actually have the winemaker's picture on the front, which I love. So this is Katia Alvarez, who is a real rock star in Spain. She's been voted like in the top 10 best Spanish winemakers. And
that's really cool.
What I like also is they actually have like a little interview with her on the back.
That's nice.
For me, it's just also so much about the story. And if you like Gordeo, you'd probably also like Albarino, which is much more common in the UK. And again, you get like that peach thing.
I want to read about Caterina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she kind of describes her wine. She kind of describes why she loves Galicia, which is where this wine is from, because it's very mountainous, it's a cool climate. So you get plenty of sunshine to get the ripe fruit, but it's not going to be overdone. It's not going to be like a fruit bomb, as you were saying. You're still going to get that crisp, refreshing element.
Very nice.
And she's just she works for Martin Kodak's, which is one of the hugest wine producers in Spain. So she's a real powerhouse, basically, and her wines are exported internationally. And you're a powerhouse who's also appreciated internationally.
I don't know about that. I think I'm not a powerhouse compared to Katerina. My face ain't on no wine bottle, even though probably by this point, I've invested so much in the wine industry that I probably do deserve my picture on a label somewhere.
Well, we're going to be talking about what's next for you in your future. So this could actually be a future goal. You've heard it here first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But with the first one, we tend to delve into your first memories of wine or how you got into wine.
My first memories of wine, I'll be really honest with you, is probably around the dinner table at my parents' house in Sydney. You know, special occasions like Christmas where you were allowed to have a little sip of wine.
My dad did the same.
And I think I said to you before, I was never one of these kids who went, oh, that's disgusting, I'm never drinking that again. I was like, I really like that. How can I get my hands on more of it? But, you know, being from a working class family in Sydney in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of box wine. There was a lot of cask wine.
I was going to say, what wines were available? Was it mainly, would you say, the box wine?
Yeah, my mother fancied a Moselle, which I'm not even sure you can get anymore.
Oh my gosh, so the Moselle region in Germany, so it's probably like a Riesling or something, but they would have Moselle. That's interesting, they marketed it like that.
I know, that was really big. Liebfrau Milch was really big.
Oh, that was big here too, yeah.
And but also there was a lot of sort of like really good local regions, like, you know, the Penfolds estate, the Mitchenbury estate. So they were the wines that we grew up with.
You say that? So you did grow up with wine, and and now how would you say? Would you say you normally would enjoy wine at home with your husband, or I know that also you have to be very social and go to lots of things just professionally. Would you tend to enjoy wine more out, or do you prefer to enjoy wine entertaining at home?
It's like you say, it's a mix of both every week. I really love that first Friday night glass of wine just with my husband at home. I hate going out Friday night.
Yeah, me too.
I like to be at home. I like to have people round. You know, wine is a big part of our lives. And, you know, I have to be one of those people that's like, you need 2 or 3 nights where you just don't. So, yeah. So it's kind of like trying to be in moderation. Although having said that, my sister is here from Australia at the moment. So it's been a bit heavy. But,
And what wines would you serve at home?
Surprisingly for a lot of people, I'm a big fan of New Zealand wines.
I love New Zealand wines.
I do too. And I think that because I'm Australian, people think that
you're just going to go for the Aussie.
Go for Australian wines. But I do find, you will probably know more than I do, I feel like there's something harsher about Australian wines. And I don't know if it's the soil thing or a sunshine thing or whatever on those grapes, but there's something about like the Marlborough region of wines that is just better for my palate.
So I would say, until like I would say there was definitely that association, and Chateau Chunder and all of those fun Monty Python
Headache wine.
sketches, in
Yeah,
1980s.
yeah.
But actually, Australia, again, it just depends on the climate.
Yeah.
And so I think either if you go to like Mornington Peninsula, like right by the coast, or you have, if you can work with altitude, like Adelaide Hills, then it gets really cold at night. So then the grapes can retain their freshness and they don't get as high in alcohol levels.
See, I knew you would know so much. One of my overriding memories is touring around the Hunter Valley region.
Oh, wow. I have yet to go there.
Oh, it's so gorgeous.
I have to go.
Again, they really favour, from my experience, they favour like really oaky wines. And so that's not a great day out for me because I can get sick quite quickly from just that strength of wine. But,
And particularly if you're drinking during the day. I mean, I'm also someone who like, I'll have a white wine spritzer. That's like kind of my trick. If I And
are you for or against ice in wine?
Weiss. My mother does that the whole time. And again, I just like kind of think like, when the situation calls for it. Like I was traveling in South Africa, you have a big braai, it's midday, 1 p.m, it's 40 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
And like, I want to enjoy my wine. I also want to be coherent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's when I have those little tactics, either Weiss or I have a white wine spritzer. Yeah.
That's the thing, because when I was growing up, putting ice in your wine was seen as the most déclassé, sort of like gauche, like so common thing to do. But now it's kind of like red wine in the fridge. It's become more acceptable.
Well, and Moet even have come up with a wine which you're meant to pour over ice.
Oh,
like
really?
a champagne which you're meant to pour over ice. Because it's slightly it's slightly sweeter. And the whole point is that it's like some people just want their champagne really, really cold and chilled. Okay. And I guess in hot countries too, if you wanted to serve bubbles. So they actually have come up with something for that.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day.
I have learned about 25 things in the last 5 minutes. This is great. Yeah.
Oh, well, no, this is fantastic. So we've covered now your love of wine, how that started. It seems that Australia had a very different culture with wine than in England, and that it was actually much more common for people to be enjoying wine.
Yeah, I think it was just, my parents were that kind of, we'd rather you drank it at home. They wanted to, they wanted to take away its kind of, it's something illicit and something naughty that you have to sneak around with. I mean, I still made my teenage alcohol mistakes when but
absolutely.
But it didn't feel like I wasn't unleashed and suddenly drinking everything I could get my hands on, because it wasn't that exciting a concept.
No, it sounds like much more like how the Europeans would do it.
Yeah.
It's just like the States who can be a bit like puritanical.
Yeah,
I've been half
really
American. I
Yeah.
just noticed that.
Yeah, they really they if they have more than 2 glasses of wine in America, they tend to think they're an alcoholic or something. It's weird. Yeah.
That was definitely true in LA.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, they all look great. So.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I prefer to drink wine and look less great.
Yeah. Exactly.
Priorities.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Yeah. This is really nice.
Oh, great.
Yeah, no, when I was a waitress years ago, when I first got to London, I would do things like I had a tray of 5 dinners in the kitchen on the greasy floor, fell backwards, like wore the 5 plates of dinner. And, kitchens are so brutal. All I heard was someone go, just get her out of here. No one's sort of like, oh God, are you all right? Now we've got to cook it all again. So, yeah.
I had similar catering, and that's why I never became a sommelier, because I had similar catering experiences, and I just would spill everything. So I could only handle, they're like, you can only do solids.
Oh,
I could only serve food.
I got better, but there was one chef who used to say to me, oh, is it you tonight? Like, he was just sort of like, oh. Yeah, waitressing was not for me.
Well, actually, though, you've done, we're getting into your career, but I know you moved over here to, go into the world of publishing. But for the first 6 months, you were actually waitressing and working in pubs and basically worked in hospitality.
Yep, bar work. My first address was not far from here on Westbourne Grove in Notting Hill.
Yeah.
At a pub called the Duke of Norfolk.
Yeah.
Where I worked during the day, and I got £100 a week and stayed and lived at the pub.
No way, like above the pub, you had they gave you a room.
While I applied for magazine jobs. And then I was a waitress for a little while at a restaurant called DeLugo in Soho.
Yep.
All the while trying to get out of it and get into magazines.
What do you think was the most kind of like interesting thing for you to learn during that 6 month period?
Well, yeah, probably. I had really bluffed my way into that waitressing job, which you probably already have gathered from what I've said. So I learned a lot about service. Things like I learned how to carry 5 plates on one hand, and and all of that sort of stuff. I learned how to properly open a champagne bottle, which I hadn't done before.
That's good life skill.
Although I did nearly take someone's eye out the first time I did try to open a champagne bottle. So it was like that job was so brutal.
I think it also makes you appreciate how tough hospitality is, and how to always be nice to everyone in hospitality. Like, I generally think of myself as nice, but like having then worked in those kind of roles.
100%. And I served a lot of famous people. I remember I served Kenneth Branagh one time.
No way.
Griff Rhys Jones another time. Yeah, it was like, they were always really nice. It was quite a big deal, that restaurant at the time. And I was so desperate for money that I applied. A friend of mine worked there and said, they're doing an intake. And I did this day of training. And they said, we'll call the people we want back tomorrow. And they didn't call me, but I had no money. So I phoned them and said, I just wanted to know what happened with, the callbacks for after the training day. And what they said to me on the phone was, everybody we wanted to see, we've asked to come back tomorrow. So I just went. And I knew that, I hadn't been picked. But I went and no one said anything. And And at the end of the day, one of the managers said to me, so who did you speak to? Because we didn't actually call you back. And I said, oh, that's so weird, because I phoned and they said, just turn up tomorrow. And he went, oh, well, you're here now. And that's how I got that job.
But
I was so desperate for money.
That's amazing, but that also doesn't surprise me, because like what does strike me about you throughout your career is your resilience and tenacity.
Well,
too.
I'm a big believer in, what's the word? Manifesting.
Yep.
And
what is that for you? Because
figuring out what you need, really, really identifying what it is that you want or you need. And then if you're attuned to that, then your eyes are open to the opportunities around it.
Were you always good at that, or was that something which you just have picked up throughout, like all these high-pressured roles?
I think that it's something that I've always been good at focusing, and it's not magic. I think some people sort of like treat it like a genie power or something.
Well, social media, some accounts do that.
It's not that. It's more that if you can really focus on what it is you want, then you start to think, okay, well, how would I get there? Who would I need to speak to? What would be the opportunity?
What are the steps?
Yeah. And so, it's even things like when I was living and working in Sydney, just imagining being a magazine editor in London. So then you've when you figure that out, then you know what jobs you're looking for, you know what questions to ask, and you know how to find out who are the right people to meet. And if you just keep plugging away at that every day, things will start to come together.
It's like making it a habit, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it will become consistent. No, that's really, and that will actually segue nicely into the next wine.
Oh, okay.
Now, I would normally be like, you can't judge a book or a wine by its cover.
Oh, I always go by the label.
But yeah, exactly, right.
I always do. I don't have your knowledge, so that one looks nice.
No, and considering that most people spend about 40 seconds actually choosing their bottle of wine when they go grocery shopping. I think,
you know what I do when I go to the wine shop is I look at them like I want the person to think I know what I'm doing when they're sort of like just staring at me from behind the counter. Not the supermarket, but like proper wine shops.
Oh, the proper wine,
like,
that studious, ponderous face.
And they must say it to everyone, but you pick one and they go, oh, good choice. And you know that it's like, even though I haven't got a clue. And they'll probably just say that to everyone.
But you buy it and you'll
like
go back.
Art. It is like art. It's really intimidating for most people, that whole thing.
Absolutely. And I think actually, if there is a fun label, whatever, it makes it memorable. They probably have put some effort into the wine if they're going to be putting that much effort into the design. And these guys definitely do all of that. So this is a rosé made by the Donofagata Winery in Sicily in collaboration with Dolce & Gabbana. I just love the box. Isn't that gorgeous?
Beautiful, but that actually doesn't look very Dolce & Gabbana to me.
Well, what they're trying to do is, this is meant to be a reference to the Sicilian carte, which is like a homage to craftsmanship, art, and the culture.
They're all about Sicily. But exactly. To me, they're more sort of like, Dolce & Gabbana is like black chantilly lace and quite what you're wearing today. That's
Yeah.
that sort of style. This is like reminds me more of there's a brand in Italy I love called La Double J who are like really, really colourful.
Ooh.
But but I'm intrigued. Yeah.
But you said that you loved your rosé.
I do love a rosé.
And that you're not afraid of fruit in a rosé. So I knew that you wouldn't be put off by the colour because it's not like too dark, but like some people are very funny with rosé. They only drink the super pale ones.
No, what I told you, one of my favourite rosés is a really deep clarity one.
Yeah, the pansy.
Have you tried it?
I can't find it.
I'm not sure they do it anymore. It's Kim Crawford Wines.
Maybe they don't export it to the UK.
No, they do. Because
they do?
Yeah.
Oh, you had it here?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll put you in touch with my wine guy.
Yes.
Yeah. I've got a wine guy. Yeah.
Who's your wine guy? Are you allowed to say?
Well, there's a company called Oz Wines, but they also deal in New Zealand wines. And every time I speak to them, one of them's always off flying business class to Australia, which I think is probably because of me. So, I have funded that for them.
So you basically, you're contributing to the wine industry. So I chose this rosé partly because obviously with your background in fashion and design, and
lovely.
This is Dolce & Gabbana, they're very proud of their Sicilian roots. Donna Fugata, they are one of the oldest wineries in Sicily. They made Marsala first, like from 1851, but no one really drinks that anymore, sadly. So they were the first winery in Sicily to start making table wine. And it was this husband and wife couple, obviously they'd be a couple, husband and wife team, which created Donna Fugata in the 1980s. And Donna Fugata actually means the escaped woman because it is based on when Queen Maria Carolina fled from Napoleon with her husband to Sicily and they sought refuge in this beautiful palace. And actually, the lady who set this up with her husband, Gabriella, she used to be a teacher, but then was like, I'm going to give this up and I'm going to actually go into wine. And now she's like one of the top. She basically says, I'm fleeing.
Wine.
I know.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know quite how you can be compared to a fleeing woman from teaching into making wine, but fine. I'm going to flee the kids.
Yeah.
And now she's become like one of the top female like viticulturists. So she deals with all the vineyards. And like Sicily is quite traditional, but she actually is like probably one of the most powerful people definitely in Sicily, and she's highly revered. So yeah, it's strong women. They love wine and they very much see wine as one of the arts. They do like every 10th of August, they have this whole like sensory different wine and music and art experiences.
Wow.
So for them, it felt very natural to team up with the fashion powerhouse, Dolce & Gabbana. So I kind of thought this all like ties in very well with your multifaceted
This is not
career.
my first Donna Fugata wine because I love Sicily.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, great. Have you had which wines have you had from there?
I don't know. I just really recognize the name. So yeah.
They're amazing. I love Sicily. I love Sicily too. Oh, that's so great.
Sicily's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I know. If I
Really
could have
love
brought over some like arancinis and things. I know. I love the food in Sicily so much.
Have you ever been, last time we went to this tiny town called Acireale.
Where's that?
It's near, it's not far from Taormina and all of those, but it's like about 60 miles from there, sort of like inward. And it's
so it's near Mount Etna because these grapes are actually grown on Mount Etna. It's a blend of Nerello Mescalese, which kind of gives it that lovely perfume and hibiscus notes, and then Nocera. So again, native grapes because they're championing their native Sicilian roots.
Quite right.
And I just think this rosé, it's just really elegant. Like it's juicy. You have like red currant fruit.
Very sweet.
Yeah. It's got like, almost like they describe it as bergamot, and I was like, what is bergamot? I actually had to Google what bergamot was.
It's a flower, isn't it?
Well, I Googled it and I got like, it was like some kind of citrus, like the most pure kind of citrus. And you can't actually eat it, but it's used in a lot of candles and perfumes.
Yeah.
So I was like, ooh, but like there is a kind of like citrus spice to it.
Yeah.
And like
lovely.
bitter.
Look at me, I look at you. Did you, you poured me a smaller one. I've just absolutely raced through that. It's terrible.
No, I think.
No, don't pour me anymore.
I think, sorry, there might be a leak in your glass.
Oh,
we can
that's what
see
it
to
is.
that. I'll get my people onto that.
Honestly, it's not me. Yeah.
But no, I'm so glad you like that. So yeah, I kind of thought that would be a fun
I
link.
love it.
But moving away from Sicily, I know, so you grew up in Sydney. You came over here to work in publishing. Why did you choose England to come and work in publishing?
Two reasons. The more boring reason is because this is where I was allowed to work.
Okay, that's fair.
We had
that's fair.
There was Australia as a Commonwealth country. There was a reciprocal thing where you could have a working visa.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
And secondly, I had always been obsessed with British pop culture. I was a teenager in the 80s, grew up with all of the groups at the time, loved Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, all of those things. And when I realized that there were people who got paid to hang out with them, basically, interview them at concerts and things like that, and I knew I could write, and I loved magazines. Well, that all sort of like came together as like, oh my God, that's a job. So I kind of went into magazines because I wanted to meet pop stars.
That's valid.
Yeah, I know. It's probably not the most noble reason.
No, I mean, Backstreet Boys were huge and like...
Oh, no. They were a bit... They're more 90s.
Oh, they're more 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, fine.
So, but, and I just really loved being around magazines. And so I became an intern at a magazine as soon as I was able to in Australia. And then I was exposed to...
That was Dolly, wasn't it?
Yeah, Dolly's like a big teen magazine.
Yeah.
And then I was exposed to... lots more people. I came from such a tiny suburb of Sydney. It wasn't very fashionable, not much going on. And it really opened my eyes to, I'd say to someone in the office, like, oh, where'd you get that jacket? And they'd be like, oh, Carnaby Street. And I'd be like, wow, they're so glamorous, And I had not thought about traveling until I worked there. And suddenly it was all these people who were traveling all the time. And it was somebody there said to me, well, you can work in England. And I was like, oh. So that became a goal.
Because I also read somewhere that you also thought that kind of British magazines were the best in the world.
Definitely. They definitely were.
What do you think now?
Well, I think that they're still good, but I think the entire magazine industry on a global scale has really, it's been revolutionized by digital and not really in the greatest ways, I think. They're all done on much more of a shoestring. It's more smoke and mirrors with making it look like you're still spending as much money as you used to. There isn't the budgets anymore I remember there was one magazine in the Glamour company where they would spend so much money and send a journalist to spend 6 months doing an investigative story on something. There's no money for that sort of stuff anymore.
Oh my God, I would have loved that.
I know. And it's so that it's not given the same love and craft that it used to be. But that's because the public's appetite has just completely changed to sort of more immediate media, more digital media. I don't think it will disappear entirely.
No.
But when you've got things like even Vogue magazine starting to really centralize all their content, so when you've got several Vogues around the world all running the same fashion shoots, which is just unheard of in my day.
Yeah.
I just think that's a bit reductive and a bit of a shame. But yeah.
Because going back a bit, you actually created Sugar magazine, Glamour. Those, as I mentioned briefly earlier, they got me through my boarding school days at an all-girls boarding school. That was for me just a creative escapism and drool-worthy. Also, some really cute boys.
Oh, I know exactly. Yeah, we love a cute boy.
But how did you come up with that idea again? With this wine, which fuses wine, music, fashion, art, all these kind of things. How did you get that idea? That there would be a market for this and that the teenage market would love fashion and music and life advice.
Well, I think you're definitely paying me way too much credit for the whole idea. I mean, I was a magazine editor. These things are invested in by big companies.
But to put it all together, you have the last say.
Yeah, and it was great. But I think that because I'd come from Australia where the teenage magazine market was, funnily enough, for a much less sophisticated country, the magazine market was more sophisticated in some ways.
Interesting.
So Dolly magazine really aped the glossy values of Cosmo, Marie Claire, Vogue. It had a hardback spine rather than the saddle stitch staple thing that a lot of the British magazines did here. So it was really about...
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it was about, okay, we want to bring this content to young girls that we know they like, but we want to flatter them and honor them by giving them it in a really, really sophisticated package. And that was a no-brainer to me because it didn't exist here. And then when Sugar launched, suddenly there was an onslaught.
Were you really nervous? Were you worried about that?
No, because I think I was very young. I was 24. And I don't know if it's naivety or confidence, but I was just very instinctive about it. I just really believed in it. I just thought, I just knew that people would like it. I didn't know it would be as successful as it was, but I wasn't worried about people not liking it. And I think you can't be an editor if you're constantly like nervous about that. You've got to go with your gut, and you've got to produce stuff that excites you.
Yeah.
And just have the faith that other people will be excited by it.
Well, because like you did Sugar, then you did Glamour for 17 years. How then could you kind of be able to put yourself in the shoes for a very different demographic when you started running You magazine?
Yeah, well, I mean, from Sugar, I went to, I launched a magazine called B.
Oh, yeah, B magazine,
which was not as successful as Sugar, which kind of brought its own lessons for me.
Absolutely.
Then I went to edit New Woman magazine, which was not the first time I'd edited something that wasn't a launch. So as that, again, more lessons there. It was sort of like trying to fit the mold of something that's already been invented. And then from there, I was poached to do Glamour. And I think after, I'd done Glamour for so long, I was 30 when I started that job, and I was 47
wow.
when I left.
Yeah. When you put it in that context.
So by that time, my life stage and my age was definitely moving more into the demographic for the You reader. So not quite as old. You magazine readers have averaged like 65 years old. But I thought, when I went into it, I thought it hasn't really changed that much in the last 20 years. So I went in with the goal of bringing in some slightly younger readers to it. So by younger, I mean 45 plus.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that part of being a magazine editor is it's almost like method acting, where you have to immerse yourself in that person's life. Well, who is this reader? What do they want? And sort of like adapt that way. And then once you start to plug into that frequency, then you start to notice the things that you think will be interesting to that reader.
Now, you do have a really amazing knack to be able to, as you say, like be able to walk in their shoes. And I was just wondering, because given that you have an 18-year-old daughter now, she's just turned 18. Given the fact that for a majority of years you were really able to put yourself into the shoes of teenagers and kind of life advice and things which interested them in their cultural zeitgeist, would you say that any of the advice which you said in the past has like now changed for today's world? Like what do you think would be the biggest kind of changes? And
I think the biggest change for women of my age is that the whole rules around the way you live and the way you approach career and things like that are so different. So I don't feel particularly equipped to give my daughter career advice other than
really
work hard and, but it's when I was a kid, it was a much more linear kind of idea that if you work really hard and you focus on something, then you will have the career and things will be great. If you study hard, you'll get into university, and then when you've done university, you'll get a great job. I don't think that those things apply anymore. And I think that we're seeing a lot more people understanding that they need to have loads of different strings to their bows, lots of, hybrid careers, flexible working. All of these things were just not a thing. She wants to go to drama school. That's completely alien to me. I haven't been able to really give her any advice on that. So it's weird. But in terms of like magazine advice, when I look back, some of the things that I'd still stand by a lot of the sex advice we gave, which was about, just basically at the bottom line of like having the self-respect for yourself.
Yeah.
But again, sex and love and dating advice, I wrote about this recently in the Times. Her world is so different to mine when it comes to those first dating experiences. There's nothing.
In what way? Like with dating apps, how people meet, how they communicate?
I've never used a dating app. I was married.
You're so lucky.
I know. Well, that's the thing. It looks horrifying. And some of the messages I've seen some people send to her is just brutal. And I just think, this is just not okay. But that's the way that people communicate now is all so through the phone.
Yeah.
That I do wonder how to advise people about forming those relationships. And I don't know, it'd be really interesting to be the editor of a teenage magazine now, but ironically there aren't any, and I think they probably need them more than teenagers did when I was editing them.
I would actually argue that you're really well equipped to be there for your daughter, having like taken that approach where you've done lots of different things. You appreciate more than most how the world has changed and
Yeah,
evolved,
maybe.
and one needs to be open-minded and flexible and resilient and have strings to one bow. And I think
Yeah.
actually that's the best thing, really. That could be argued the best thing one can offer as a parent.
Well, all I can do is try and live by example. And I remember when we were all made redundant at Glamour, she was, how old was she? She would have been like 12.
Right.
And I just thought, okay, I'm going to have to handle this in a really visibly good way, because I need her to know that, you know, shit happens, but it's okay. There are setbacks and you can move past them. So that was really tough. And I remember, you know, she would say to me, are we going to be okay? Are we going to be poor now? You know, and all this sort of stuff. You know, we're not rich, but, and it was like, no, because I've been saving money and, you know, this is what I'm doing and I'm going to apply for this job. And so, you know, it's like real time lived examples of everybody has setbacks. So, yeah.
I mean, that's amazingly powerful. I think, she's very, very, like I was going to say, do you think one of the biggest challenges in your career, but do you think that was one of the hardest moments?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Like just like with a child or
no, it wasn't unexpected. So, and in a lot of ways, I've written about this before, where I become so accustomed to that job and loved it so much, I was scared to leave, even though I probably should have. So in a lot of ways, it was kind of a relief when that decision was made for me, because I don't know if I would have been brave enough to make that decision on my own. So there was that. I think one of the biggest challenges I had was walking into You magazine when that team was so established, and my remit was to come in and bring change. And you've got camps of people who don't want change and people who do but can't necessarily see the way forward. And that was, you know, it wasn't horrible or anything, but it's tough. It was tough for me, and it was tough for the people who suddenly had this new boss. And just navigating that, it just took time and a lot of communication.
But then you really turned it around, and actually you left really at the height of.
I hope so. Thank you. Yeah. But
your
yeah, and
success.
I kind of like, I just got to a stage where I just wanted to try different things. And that's kind of where I'm at the moment, just trying different things.
Now, we are going to be talking about that over the next wine, but I have a couple of, just while we're drinking this Donna Fagata / Dolce & Gabbana wine, I have a couple of fashion questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so very serious highbrow stuff here. Who do you think has stolen the fashion crown these days?
Oh, gosh. That's a good one. Oh, I'd have to think about that. Well, the thing is, I'm quite boring. I like the old girls. I like, not that
Who
she's old.
classifies as old?
Well, what I mean is like that your stalwarts of consistently fabulous, like Kate Blanchett recently at the fashion shows was just incredible.
Another amazing Aussie.
Yeah, bringing out all her old clothes and making them look fantastic again. But who's stolen the crown?
Or who do you think is one to watch?
I think definitely the ones who I like, these exciting young girls like Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, people like that who I think are looking amazing. She looked amazing at the Miu Miu show a couple of weeks ago, and I think she's super talented. So I think it's that new guard who are coming up. Yeah.
What is your take on gender fluid dressing?
I love it. I love gender fluid dressing. I've got no problem with it whatsoever. And I think when you think about it, I think that women have had more freedom in that respect for a long time. So fine. I love it. Some of my favorite K-pop boys look great in a skirt.
Yeah, I actually.
You know, yeah.
You joke that your husband hates your fashion.
He really does, yeah.
What are his biggest bugbears?
What he calls my big old bell bottoms. He hates all my. I love a wide leg.
But they're really fashionable, aren't they now?
I love them, and I love a cropped wide leg. So it's like really wide, and then your ankles stick out.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, you know, hates that. He hates. He doesn't like it when I do things like this, like sort of like clash things. Well, this isn't too clashy today.
No,
but,
that's not clashy.
No,
yeah.
but like when I clash prints, when I wear really loud trousers.
Have you always been that confident in doing that?
No.
So that's something which one can learn, because I must admit, like my confidence, like with clothes, it's an evolving thing.
It definitely is, and I didn't really have much confidence until sometime into Glamour. I wasn't a fashion person. That's not how I got into magazines, and then I kind of had to learn fashion, and then I don't know. You just start to realize that, particularly at things like fashion shows, that Most people are just worried about how they look. They're not worried about how you look.
So
and
true.
You start to figure out what you like and what you feel comfortable in. And you just learn as you get older what suits you. And you also just don't care as much anymore what people think. So, you know, my husband is a joke and he doesn't care what I wear really, but someone on Instagram might say to me, oh, I hate that. And I just think, well, hun, I don't care what my husband thinks of it. So I don't care what a stranger thinks. It just doesn't bother me if you don't like my outfit. It really doesn't.
No,
Yeah.
that's their issue.
Yeah.
A slightly more serious one. You attended an event recently speaking out against ageism. What is your stance on like ageism in the fashion industry?
I think it's got better. I think it comes in peaks and troughs. I think that there's a lot. I think Instagram has really changed the game in that way, and that there's so many influencers now who are older and look amazing. And I really look up to a lot of those women. People like Linda V. Wright, who runs a shop in Paris, Middle-Aged Minx. That's Not My Age is another one.
Oh, yeah.
Accidental Icon. I think there's a lot of women now, and it's not even about, don't I look good for my age? It's just, here I am.
Yeah.
I feel the same as I did when I was 25, and this is how I dress. And I think that's become, because it's more visible on Instagram and people respond so well to it, I think that, you know, there's some ad campaigns with some fantastic older people in them. You see it on the catwalks more and more. I just think that slowly but surely, those sorts of things people are relaxing about more. And older women are starting to become more confident in still taking up that space. So I think that finally we're getting to a point where we won't become invisible. But it depends what industry. You know, I did that panel, and there was a lot of people on the panel who worked in things like the city.
Yeah.
There was a lady who works in city recruitment and says she advises anyone over 50 to lie about their age still on their CV.
Really?
And I was like, but how do we move on from that? And she said, well, once you're in and then you prove that, you know, age is no barrier, etc. But so there's still industries where that I'm not sure if fashion is the worst offender.
No, I would argue there's a lot of industries which still have far to go.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, like, with working actually just in hospitality and with wine, like, there's a lot of misconceptions. And there's a lot of misconceptions just when it comes to consumers and wine. Like, people think screw caps, for example, mean inferior wine.
Right.
Or people think, like, oh, you know, all Chardonnay is going to be oaky and big. Like, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions people might have around, like, publishing and kind of the media space which you occupied?
That everything is retouched to within an inch of its life. Someone walks in looking like Jabba the Hutt and they leave looking like Barbie. And
So you mean that doesn't happen?
It's not true. It's ridiculous. And I think particularly as people have become so much more media savvy and media aware. I mean, look what's just happened to Kate Middleton.
know, that poor
it's
woman.
like everybody's just looking for it all the time. So as an editor, even if I was the sort of editor who wanted to airbrush everybody into looking like a surprise boiled egg, it's like, you know, that people are vigilant about it. So it's a real deterrent. I think that's one that we pay everybody to be on our covers. That that everything written about a celebrity is pre-approved and preordained. It's, you know, just all those sorts of things. And that it's interesting. I think that you still get that thing that, oh, are we all like The Devil Wears Prada? You know, there's that sort of a thing. And I think that there's a lot of projection goes on there. It was like, there was once, I was in the Daily Mail once, just a little one of those, you know, profile things about this editor, what they do's and don'ts, what they wear or whatever.
Yeah.
And it said where I'd lived in London, which was Sydenham.
Yeah.
And then there was my local area, like most of the local areas, has got like a little forum of chat for neighbours.
Yeah.
Someone uploaded this and said, oh, apparently this editor lives in Sydenham. And somebody said, well, I mean, I don't judge a place by, you know, just someone's fancy title. I'd rather just live next door to really just genuinely nice people. So you're assuming because I'm an editor that I'm an asshole. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of that goes on. So, yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. Devil Wears Prada probably did not help that cause.
It's a great film.
I mean, it's a wonderful film. Don't get me wrong. I love it.
It is a fantastic film. And, you know, yeah, there's a lot of truth in it. But yeah.
Well, before we move on to the next wine, I mean, I do I do think it's important because we are going to be talking about with the third one. We always talk about what people are moving on to and kind of their other interests. But you've also just recently stepped down from like working with Children with Cancer UK for 2 years as the CEO, which is so impressive. And what's amazing, like for me, is when I read somewhere that you actually said people might have been stunned, like, oh, the magazine world and fashion. How can one go from that world to suddenly a leading cancer charity? And you actually said, actually, the transition wasn't that crazy. Can you elaborate? Because I think this, again, goes back to your earlier point of needing to have many strings to one's bow.
Yeah, and I think it's just, I was brought in to be something different, firstly. I was brought in specifically to raise the profile of the charity, attract new supporters and donors, attract high-profile supporters and ambassadors, and do a massive rebrand on it. Excuse me. And to do a massive rebrand. And those things are completely in the wheelhouse of my magazine and my journalist skills. So there was that. And I did it. We launched some really high-profile new events. We did that big rebrand. It needed to look more modern to attract sort of like more corporate donors, things like that. We need to tell more stories about the children and
absolutely
really get much more Instagram and social media savvy than they were. So we've done all of those things, and it's been incredibly rewarding. It's been a huge learning curve for me, but I kind of done what I could for them, and set them on their way. And now I don't know. I'll probably still be involved in the odd creative project, but the actual CEO role I think now needs somebody more traditional whose strengths are the bureaucracies and the admin and all those sorts of things. So I've sort of, So
but then that just also goes back to your lesson too, like knowing when to leave and like when not to stay too long in a role and when you've done what you can.
Exactly. And I'm still on this, my own goal of like just trying to try new things. And I'm really definitely ready for a space now where I work for myself. So yeah.
Well, we're going to go more into that with the next wine.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So last but definitely not least is a wine made by a woman who's actually called Jane Eyre, who's Aussie, was a hairdresser, but loved wine. And one of her clients in Melbourne, her husband was a wine critic. And Jane Eyre said to her, like, look, where can I learn about wine? And this woman was like, oh, well, we actually have contacts in Burgundy. So she went over to Burgundy, fell in love with it. Then went back to Australia, worked at Cullen Winery in Margaret River. Then she went to work for Felton Road in Atarangi in New Zealand.
Okay.
Then she went to the Moselle, as we were talking about earlier, and worked with Ernie Lucen, who's an amazing producer in Germany.
Made some nice cask wines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
and then
important.
she set up in Burgundy, and now she's a negociant, so she deals with grapes from around various sites in Beaujolais. And it's the Fleury. So I'm just going to bring this bottle. So Fleury, so we're in Burgundy, but we're in the southern part of Burgundy, Beaujolais. I think most people, when they think of Beaujolais, they think of Beaujolais Nouveau, which is like you must drink it within the first year. This is actually, as soon as you start getting into the village and the cru levels, like Morgon or Fleury, anything which as soon as it just like has a name on it as opposed to like Beaujolais Village, like you're suddenly getting to the top echelons. And Fleury is generally known to be more structured, but perfumed too, because it's high altitude. So hopefully with this, you'll get, lovely kind of like floral perfume, violet perfume. And it's made from Gamay. It's not made from Pinot Noir, like what the majority of Burgundy produces. So Gamay is slightly softer than Pinot Noir. You get the fruitiness, not so much tannin, but hopefully, like, I know you like your juicy fruit. And I just love her story because she basically moved over in 2004 properly to Burgundy.
Amazing. How old is she? Do we know?
Now she must be in her late 40s. And she like went over in 2004, started making wine. And in 2021, she actually won the best negociant of Burgundy, which has never been awarded to a woman before. And it was like given to this like Aussie powerhouse. And I was just
she used to be a hairdresser.
Yeah. From
Amazing,
Melbourne.
Right? And
I just love the Jane Eyre literary references. Like I know that you love your writing.
I love that her name's Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
That's a bold move from the parents.
I know.
That's like, it really is, isn't it? It's like you give someone that name, they're going to do something.
I know. So I just love like literary reference, the fact that she's Aussie, the fact that she has like international success. She's come over from Aussie land and like doing that. And I think you'll enjoy this. I was trying to work out what kind of reds you'd enjoy.
That's delicious.
Yeah, the flurry. Yeah, I know, because it's Gamay. It's very similar to Pinot Noir. Like you do get that succulent, black, juicy kind of almost not quite coulis fruit, but then you get like a kind of licorice spice as well, and hedgerow spice, and which kind of
I'm just going to agree with you because I'm so wine illiterate, but it's nice.
But yeah, so like the last two wines, I should have said, the last two wines are imported by Liberty, but can be found by various online retailers, and all the wine information will be in the notes.
Oh, good.
This retails, it varies at the various online retailers. It's around £39.
Okay.
But it's because she's a top producer. It's in one of the top crews of Beaujolais.
Have you ever paid a fortune for a bottle of wine and then been really disappointed by it?
Or sometimes it can be corked.
Right.
And that's really sad. That I think,
But
I had a really bad experience.
Being corked is different too. I just think this wine's not very good.
I got screwed in LA multiple ways in business. But anyway, we like, but I'm just
might need to add some context to that comment. Yeah.
In business.
Yeah.
But actually just going out for a lunch with a winemaker. We went to this wine bar, and it is quite bougie in Beverly Hills. And they'd run out of the 2 or 3 white Burgundies by the glass. I would, and I was leaving it to the winemaker to choose. I wouldn't necessarily choose a white Burgundy. And the waiter came back. He's like, we've got this and this. And he just said the names. He didn't show us any prices. And the winemaker was very flustered. And he's like, okay, yeah, we'll go for 2 glasses of that. Turned out each glass was $80 a glass.
Dear.
And they didn't tell us at the wine shop, which I think, going back to like poor hospitality, that's really bad.
I had that in Paris one night. It was at this hen night that I love my friend, but I was so exhausted from the shows. And I'd got back to London on a Thursday, and then on Saturday morning at the crack of dawn, I was going back to Paris for this hen night and expected to be out all night. And I was just like, I wasn't feeling it to begin with. Then we were in this club on the Champs-Elysees. Like, I hate clubs.
Yeah.
Really loud all night, the whole thing. And all I wanted was a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And they said, we've only got it by the bottle. And we can give you the house wine. I was like, fine. €200. And when the bill came, and the euro,
was it at least nice?
The euro had just come in. Like, so I said, oh, do you mean 200 francs? And they were like, no, madame. And I was just like, the house wine was €200. And I was like furious. And this girl I was with said, well, I mean, you can get that can happen in the garage. I was like, yeah, but they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you that you can have this wine or this wine.
Yeah. No, that
was like.
No, that's really dodgy. That's awful.
That was an absolutely traumatic.
No, that's like, no, and mine is still traumatic.
Don't love Paris.
great fashion shows.
Not unrelated. But yeah.
Well, I chose this wine because I, as well as just like having an amazing name and being a wine style, which I think you'd like, she's also someone who's like evolved with her career. And like, she obviously has always been a creative. I mean, she was a creative hairstylist and whatever, and had her own kind of studio and whatever.
But I also think, to what I was saying earlier, like wine is something that I think a lot of people have difficulty having confidence around. To just think, I'm going to go and learn about that. And now she's this big award winner. I think that's incredible.
I mean, but like, look at you too. I mean, like you came, from Australia, then set up some of the biggest, Glamour was the most sold glossy magazine in Europe.
Well, I think if Jane and I ever meet, what we will have in common is that there's a lot of Aussies who we feel we're really got the FOMO. You're so far away from the rest of the world that you really feel like you're missing out. And there's every Australian I know here was desperate to get out and just see what else there was. And then most of us end up just getting carried along with our lives here.
And what are you going to get up to in your life here now? Well, I know that we've got a podcast
I'm going to tidy my house, Amelia. It's been a while. It is just, honestly, it's just stuff like that.
On the priority list, it's like...
Well, I definitely, what I want for a couple of months is to make some space for myself and just sit and think about what it is that I really want to do next. I love writing. I've got one podcast called Fame, and I'm launching another one with my Aussie friend, Donna.
Oh, the designer.
Yes, Donna Ida, Jean Queen.
Yeah.
We must refer to her. It's going to be called What Would Jo and Donna Do? And we're recording the next one next week. So I don't know when this goes out, but it will probably be up and running quite soon.
And you're doing your fashion series with Amanda Wakely.
Yes, that is super fun. That's on her YouTube channel, Amanda Wakely, where it's called Friday Night Fashion. And we review this week it'll be the Cheltenham races. So
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And what wine do you choose for that? Because I do see that you do drink wine throughout. I was curious what you were drinking.
It's a delicious, I think it's Chablis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Classy.
I think, but I'm not one of those fussy alcoholics. So if Amanda pulls out a bottle of wine, I'm just like, yeah, sure, thanks. So, yeah.
And can you see yourself doing more with fashion in the future?
I think so. I've got a slot that I do regularly on Lorraine, doing that one tomorrow.
I love Lorraine.
Yeah, it's super fun down there, and it's a brilliant thing to do. And I think that I'll probably be doing a lot more writing. I'm trying to sort of like gather my stamina and finally get a book out and things like that. So
but that requires having one's own space and time to work through.
Yeah.
And I must be like, I do find it really inspiring that you have been married to your husband for 24 years.
Oh, God.
With everything going on. Like, what do you think is the key to a successful union? Because like, you've been able to evolve, you've been able to develop, you have a child, he's busy doing his thing. What do you think is like the key to that kind of success?
I think in all seriousness, it is giving each other the space we are so different people to when we got together. And you just have to find a way to rub along and learn and grow together. And I think accept that sometimes are boring, sometimes you want to kill each other, sometimes you love each other. I just feel like I'm very, very lucky in that he is someone whose company I never tire of. And I think that that's the key. It's not always exciting. It's not always sexy, but we just have a good vibe, I think. So, yeah. And I am very lucky. We've actually been together 30 years.
Oh, 30 years. I got that wrong.
No. Well, we've been married 24.
Oh, married 24, but then been together.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Crackers.
That is cheers to that. That's actually a really awesome,
Thank you.
Awesome testament to you. Like, no, that is very inspiring.
Also, it'd be a ball ache to get divorced. It would just be so annoying. I mean, it just would, wouldn't it? I sort of said we were watching some show years ago. It was like where they fly on the wall documentary with like sitting in marriage counselling, and it was awful. And I said to Ross, God, I'm never doing that. It's like, if we hate each other, we're just going to have to stay married.
Yeah, exactly.
And he said, well, our parents did it. We can do it. And it was like, it's just joking. But it's like,
no.
Lawyers dividing up no.
As long as you have enough good wine, like you can get through most things.
Although, I mean, he's a dreadful snorer. We don't share a bed very often just because otherwise I'd be dead by now. So, yeah.
No, I'm all for separate bedrooms. All for that. There is one thing I always ask everyone on this podcast. It is the wine confessional. Now, can you think of a hilarious, funny...
You want me to tell you about stories of when I was drunk?
I was trying to be more diplomatic, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be with wine. You can be more creative with it.
I mean, the only thing, I've told this story before, but it's like I was at a friend's 50th a few years ago. And, I mean, I wasn't hammered, but, I'd had enough.
Yeah.
But I also had on very high heels.
Oh, no.
And as I was leaving the venue, it was very dark and I didn't see that there was a step down. I mean, I told you I was a klutz. Mm-hmm. And I fell over and I ended up on my back. And this guy just sort of like looked at me and stepped over me, and it was Jeremy Clarkson.
No.
And he sort of like, he did give me a look like, oh, this is what happens when you let women drink. And it was like,
and he didn't help you.
No.
He just stepped over you. Actually, should I be that surprised? But
No. It's like, so that's my wine confessional.
Actually, he should be more embarrassed than you. But anyway.
Well,
thank you very much for sharing that. And I just want to say thank you so much
for
coming
me.
I know like how busy you are, but also actually it makes me happy to know that like you are taking this time to like tidy your house, which is I guess always cathartic.
I will try, yeah.
But also just like think like what you want to do and what feels right now. And you've got really exciting things already happening.
Thank
so
you, Amelia.
It's been really lovely meeting you.
Thank you for the wine and the cheese.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
And now you need to hunt out Jane Eyre.
Oh, yes. I can't wait. Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.